Everybody and their best friend and their best friend's best friend has an opinion on what the future of college sports will be like. Some think it's already ruined. NIL, transfer portal. It's donezo. It's not what it once was. Some think every Olympic sport, gone. Everyone has an opinion. Some are doomsday. Some are awesome. Some are, it's going to be so great. You know what? I love those conversations, first of all. And sitting around a table. What about this? The what ifs? It's great. We can do it all day. But when we get an actual clue about what the future of college sports might look like, I think that's more meaningful. And a lot of times, court cases are where the truth comes out, right? A lot of times we find out like how much, and I don't even know if we say we found out, but like the tabloids find out how much a celebrity is actually making or actually worth when like a divorce happens and they have to list everything. Well, the ACC and Florida State and Clemson, ACC on one side, Florida State, Clemson on the other side, went to court. They did a lot of suing each other in a bunch of different states. And because of that, we've gotten a clue about what the future of college sports might look like. First of all, in a vacuum, I don't think this settlement was good for the ACC. Right? Because the cost for schools to leave the conference appears to have gone down significantly. There was an opinion, there was an estimate, even Florida State was estimating publicly that it would cost them over $500 million to leave the ACC. Under the settlement, the cost to leave after the 2025-2026 fiscal year is $165 million. And from that point on, drops by $18 million annually until the 2030-2031 year, in which case it will rest at $75 million through the end of the grant of rights at 2036. That to say, if Clemson and Florida State want to leave right now, by the end of the 2025-2026 fiscal year, they only need to raise $165 million, not the $600 or $700 million that was estimated. But that's not the most interesting part of this settlement. The detail that may have been overlooked by many, The Athletic actually pointed a spotlight on, and I hat tip to them for doing so. There is an option, officially called an option of limited withdrawal, which means if at least 6 members of the ACC want to leave in just one sport, the same sport amongst them, but in just one sport, to join a single sport league, conference, or other association alongside other schools, their withdrawal fee is significantly lower. It drops immediately to the $75 million that doesn't hit for the full until 2031, or 50% of the current withdrawal figure, whichever is greater. Basically what that means is, to put it in I think, more easy to digest terms, if 6 schools got together and wanted to leave, take just their football team and go to a football-only super league, meanwhile stay in the ACC and all other sports, basketball, women's basketball, baseball, on and on and on, they could do that for a significantly less costly exit fee than if they were to remove themselves entirely from the ACC. This is in preparation for a football super league, is my immediate read on it. This is in preparation for the biggest, baddest football brands in the country saying, why do we still answer to the NCAA when we are more valuable, when we bring in more money, when our needs and wants are not anywhere close to the same needs and wants of a men's and women's soccer team? So why are we all under the same umbrella? Why don't we go govern for ourselves? In the same way that like the NFL owners are the ones paying the commissioner's salary, they would go figure out their own structure and have their own super league for football only and leave the NCAA to handle the rest. And the ACC has made it a possibility that teams can do that for the low price of $75 million or 50% of the current withdrawal fee, whichever is greater, which may not seem low, but it is. I promise you it is. Especially when you think of how much gosh darn money a football super league would make.
I would imagine the timing of it would fall in line, especially when you get to that $75 million mark, which is about 5 years from now, roughly. That's roughly in line of when the SEC and Big Ten's media rights come up, which also might be a possibility where they unbundle, sell football separately, or go football Super League, and then you can just take this football super conference that's separate from the NCAA and sell it like the NFL sells its TV rights. Do the exact same thing. And then you take all that money that you generate from football, and there you revenue share with just football. Then the money you take from everything else that's still ACC gets distributed to everyone else.
There's two sides to this coin. One, I like it because I actually think it turns the ACC back into the most powerful conference in the country. Because if you remove football, then the next highest grossing sport, the big chip stacks at the table, would be the best basketball brands, and I believe the ACC still has that. So if you remove football, all of a sudden the ACC now, whoever's in the Super League for football, you're handling yourself. The ACC basketball becomes the biggest selling point outside of the football Super League. So I'd like the ACC being able to bully again. I think they deserve to be the biggest brand. I am biased, but hey. The thing I worry about is, what if the teams we care about aren't invited to the Super League? What happens to them? Does if they invite whatever it is, 70 schools, so it's every Power 4 program, then obviously the Wake Forests, they don't have to worry about anything. However, if they invite, say, 48 or 36, if they want to be closer to an NFL model of that 30 to 36 kind of. Or most pro leagues are in that, close to 30. If they go to 36, how confident are you that your schools are included? Because if they're not, then you might feel like an FCS program pretty darn quickly. Right? Because you're essentially adding another level, and if you're not at the top level, that's going to feel less important. As somebody that played for a national championship in the FCS, I can tell you right now, it's not the same as playing for a national championship at the highest level, right? It's not as prestigious. It doesn't come with as much pomp and circumstance. It's, I'm sure, not as lucrative for the school. It would be a huge worry for the teams not chosen to go with. But if you're in the cool kids club, like let's say you're NC State or UNC or Duke, right? The teams that we cover most closely here in the Triangle. If your football teams are invited into the cool kids club of the Super League, you're one of the 6 at least ACC teams that pay the minimal exit fee and head to the Super League for football only. Now, I assume that football Super League is operating in some ways similar to a professional league. So may even be some revenue sharing. You're making money hand over foot there. Then you look back at the NCAA, and you still have some of the biggest, baddest basketball brands in the entire country. So now you're the big dog in college sports outside the Super League, and you're included in the cool kids table in the Super League. Now you're on top of the world. But if you're not invited to the football, you're not getting that Super League money. Now you're playing in what feels like a 1AA. It feels like you're playing in an FCS for football. Much less good. And I know that's bad grammar, but called for it. Much less solid footing for the future. Super League scenarios have been discussed a ton. I've seen everything from 60 teams up to every power conference, which would be around 70, all the way down to 30 or 32 for those Super Leagues. I don't want to make myself sad with thinking about what 32 teams would be chosen, because politics matters, right? It would be the SEC and the Big Ten. And a few others, but yikes. The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan. But it is a clue, right? That Super League, even if it's not happening, if the smartest scientist I know just started getting together like a few non-perishable foods and putting them in their basement, and they're like the smartest meteorology-trained scientist I know, I would go, you know what? Maybe we should grab some canned foods, right? Like maybe we should look into what's going on here. Same is true here, right? If the ACC, Florida State and Clemson, if their lawyers looked at everything and insisted on this provision being put into the contract, I'm probably going to start preparing. John Shire, the head coach of Duke basketball, talked to the media today, and he used the terms, and he actually said, something they pride themselves on. They had a meeting, he either said yesterday or earlier today, with his coaches of just trying to predict what the future looks like.
Yeah.
Just trying to get together and try to understand so they can be prepared and be ready to pounce on advantages that appear or, deal with disadvantages that appear. The fact that this clause is in the contract, somebody is preparing for something. And sometimes when people are running away and screaming, you don't ask, hey, what are you running from? You just start running.